on Y News. U.S. President Donald Trump hails summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as both sign agreement on denuclearization and establishment of new ties. President Rodrigo Duterte raises concern about Filipino fishermen with Chinese Ambassador Xiao Jinhua as he leads Philippine Independence Day rites in Cavite. And the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board now hold the full power to regulate transport network service fares. Y News begins now.
From the UNTV News and Rescue Command Center in Quezon City, this is Y News.
Good evening. U.S. President Donald Trump hails historic summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as both agreed to address various issues. Annie Mancilla is live from the International Media Center in Singapore to tell us why. Yes, Annie, go ahead.
Good evening, Darlene. U.S. President Donald Trump hailed the results of his first ever summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as they agreed to commit on resolving various issues such as the nuclearization of the Korean peninsula. In front of the cameras, Trump and Kim shook hands, signaling the start of the first ever summit between a sitting U.S. president and a North Korean leader. Afterwards, the two held a more than 40-minute one-on-one meeting where they discussed a wide range of issues. An expanded meeting was also held this time with the aides of Trump and Kim. The two leaders also had a working lunch. President Trump hailed the summit and lauded Kim, repeatedly calling him a very, very smart person and a good negotiator. He said he even invited Kim to the White House.
A lot of progress. Really very positive. I think better than anybody could have expected. Top of the line. Really good.
Today, we had a historic meeting and decided to leave the past behind. And we are about to sign a historic document. The world will see a major change. I would like to express my gratitude to President Trump to make this meeting happen. Thank you.
The two also signed a joint document that contains the commitment of the U.S. and Washington on a wide range of issues. It states the commitment of North Korea to denuclearization and establishing of new diplomatic ties between the two countries. The two countries also vowed to efforts to build a lasting and stable peace regime on the Korean peninsula and Pyongyang's commitment to recovering the remains of prisoners of war and persons who are missing in action. Hours after the signing, President Trump described in a press conference that his meeting with Kim had been honest, direct, and productive. He also noted North Korea's commitment to complete denuclearization and that Kim told him that his government is currently destroying some of its major nuclear sites. However, Trump mentioned that the economic sanctions imposed on North Korea will remain ineffective and that he plans on ending the conduct of military drills in South Korea and possibly reducing the presence of military troops there. Trump has left Singapore at 7 p.m. while Kim is set to leave between 9 p.m. and midnight. And these are the latest in Singapore. Back to you, Darlene.
Thank you, Annie Mancilla, reporting live from the International Media Center in Singapore. Meanwhile, the summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un have finally pushed through today. But this highly anticipated meeting would have not happened without the U.S. and North Korean officials who worked behind the scenes to prepare for its success. Marijo Maleriado's report tells us why.
President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un made history after their first ever summit in Singapore earlier. But this would not have taken place without other key players who raced behind the scenes to make it happen. On the U.S. side is Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who visited North Korea while still in his role as CIA director, meeting with Kim Jong-un to begin planning the summit. Last month, he returned to North Korea for another meeting with Kim as the Secretary of State. He also met the senior advisor of North Korean leader Kim Jong-chul in New York and Washington, D.C. President Trump's second chief of staff, John Kelly, who greeted Kim Jong-chul during his visit to the White House last month and was one of 4 Americans in the meeting, and National Security Advisor John Bolton, whose comments comparing negotiations with to the Libya model angered North Korean officials as well as Trump, nearly derailing the summit. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations Joe Hagan, the White House point person for the summit, and U.S. Ambassador to the Philippines Song Kim, who he led the advanced talk with North Korea in the border village of Panmunjom. Also, pivotal in making the summit happen is Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong. On the North Korean side, there is North Korea's Foreign Minister and longtime negotiators Ri Yong-hu, who is often referred to as soft-spoken and polite, but made waves last fall when he called President Trump's President Evil at the UN General Assembly last fall. Another key player is the vice chair of North Korea's ruling Workers' Party and country's former spy, Chief Kim Yong-chul, who is considered Kim Jong-un's right-hand man. Some of them were present during today's summit in Singapore, particularly in the expanded bilateral meeting between Trump and Kim, of which they had talked about the wide range of issues such as denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Mary Jo Maleriado, UNTV News and Rescue, Singapore.
Body language experts say that in the 30 seconds or so that the U.S. president held onto the hand of Kim Jong-un for the first time, he projected his usual dominance by reaching out first. Myla Guevara explains why.
In their first moments of meeting each other on Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un both sought to project a sense of command as they began a historic summit in Singapore, according to a body language expert. Karen Leong, managing director of Singapore-headquartered Influence Solutions, explains the first 13 seconds or so showed both leaders seeking to take charge in their encounter. Trump did most of the talking and Kim appeared to listen attentively, turning to him 3 times during their walk towards their meeting room. But he also patted the U.S. president's arm in an attempt to show control over the encounter.
So I do see playing that out in his body language. It's very, very reined in. There's a little bit of tentativeness because this is a gamble. I mean, Trump is a gambler, and he's gambling on being able to rein in North Korea like a parent does to a naughty child.
The U.S. president, who is more than twice Kim's age, then appeared to lead the way to the library where they held a one-on-one meeting, placing his hand on the North Korean leader's counterpart's back. Kim's first major interaction with the international community also betrayed a sense of awe and wonder as he faced the rapid-fire shutters of photographers in the opulence of the Singapore luxury hotel where the meeting took place.
Firstly, you can see Kim's expression the very first time when he's looking at Trump when they're doing the handshake. Kim's mouth is a little bit ajar. It's almost like he's looking at, wow, I made it happen. This is the moment. And whatever it is, Kim starts off more relaxed than Trump, right? Because he has really succeeded in whatever North Korea has won without any concessions. They have not completely denuclearized. So he's more relaxed because whatever result, whichever way the cookie crumbles, North Korea has won.
Ahead of the meeting, Trump had said he would be able to work out within the first minute whether his North Korean counterpart was serious about making peace. Myla Guevara, UNTV News and Rescue, Singapore.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in expresses his wish for a successful summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un while South Koreans eagerly watch the televised summit. Eric Ferrer tells us why.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in watched a televised summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on Tuesday and expressed his wishes for a successful summit.
I spent a sleepless night. I, along with all our people, sincerely hope that it will be a successful summit that will open a new era of complete denuclearization, peace, and a new relationship between South Korea, North Korea, and the United States.
Television broadcasts showed live footage of Trump and Kim greeting each other on the patio of the Capella Hotel on Sentosa Island in Singapore against a backdrop of American and North Korean flags. They appeared cordial and then moved on to a meeting indoors. Both North Korea and US have sought to narrow down differences over how to end a nuclear standoff. While Trump was optimistic about prospects for the first ever meeting of sitting US and North Korean leaders, US Secretary of State Michael Pompeo injected a note of caution, saying it remains to be seen if Kim is sincere about his willingness to denuclearize. Meanwhile, South Koreans hope for denuclearization and reunification on the Korean peninsula to be realized through the summit between Trump and Kim. Dozens of South Koreans gathered in front of a television screen at Seoul railway station early on Tuesday and watched the televised summit. Should Trump and Kim succeed in making a diplomatic breakthrough, it could bring lasting change to the security landscape of Northeast Asia. South Koreans also hope that the next summit could happen in the truce village of Panmunjom bordering the two Koreas.
I think the US-North Korea summit will serve as a momentum to put reunification forward. The only regret is that South Korea did not participate in the summit with them. I hope the United States will play an assistant role, while South Korea and North Korea lead this matter.
리더십을 발휘하는 게 좋을 것 같습니다.
장소가 중요하지 않다고 생각합니다.
I think the location is not important. There is no reason why it should be held at the Panmunjom. If the two leaders had great talks, a summit can be held at Panmunjom maybe next time. That is why I don't agree that Moon Jae-in had been passed over in this issue.
그래서 문재인 패싱에 대해서는 그렇게 심각하게 생각하고 있지 않습니다.
Eric Ferrer, UNTV News and Rescue, South Korea.
In other news, President Rodrigo Duterte briefly talks with Chinese Ambassador Xiao Jinhua as he led the 120th Independence Day celebration in Kawit, Cavite. Rosa Licos tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte shares with Chinese Ambassador Xiao Jinhua the country's concern over the Chinese Coast Guard's act of taking the catch of Filipino fishermen at Scarborough or Panatag Shoal. Duterte and Xiao briefly talked during the 120th Independence Day celebration in Kawit, Cavite earlier. Prior to the president's arrival, media also took notice of the serious talks between Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana and Ambassador Xiao at the Aguinaldo Shrine. After the event, the Chinese official told media that President Duterte relayed to him his worry about the Filipino fishermen in Scarborough Shoal.
President Duterte shared his concern about the Filipino fishermen. I remember even before he took office, he raised the concern. And after he took office, China and the Philippines, under the guidance of both presidents of the two countries, we reached a friendly arrangement which allows the Filipino fishermen to go back to the waters near Scarborough. Fishermen are fishing there. This arrangement is not changed and will not be changed.
Though the Chinese official confirms that barter system is really happening in Scarborough, he clarifies that the Chinese government did not order the forceful taking of fish catch from the Filipinos. Even the Chinese Foreign Ministry confirms investigation on the reported incident is underway. Once allegations are proven, China will discipline those involved.
Chinese Coast Guard vessels are there to protect peace and order and had many times provided humanitarian assistance to Philippines fishermen. China's Coast Guard consistently operates in accordance with the law. As for whether certain phenomenon the media mentions actually exists, China is currently carrying out a consensus investigation.
Let me say that in English there is a saying, even the best regulated families, accidents happen. So we always have bad apples, but if we have bad apples, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw them into the South China Sea and feed the fish.
Meanwhile, many are criticizing the alleged downplaying of the Philippine government of the reported incidents in the disputed West Philippine Sea. However, the governments of both China and the Philippines are firm in maintaining friendly relations between the two countries. Rosa Licos, UNTV News and Rescue, Kawit, Cavite.
The Department of Transportation grants the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board the full authority to set and regulate fares for transport network companies. Joan Nano will tell us why.
Transport network companies will now have to relinquish its power to set its own fares following the release of a new order signed by Transportation Department Secretary Arthur Tugade. Under the new memo nullifying the DOTR Orders 2015 and 2017-11, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has the full authority to set and regulate fares among transport network vehicle service providers.
LTFRB will ensure consumer protection and fair competition with the authority given by the department order authorizing LTFRB to regulate and supervise TNCs and TNVS.
TNVS drivers are in favor of the order but ask LTFRB to be reasonable in setting the fares.
Pag sila na po nag-set up ng fare, sana ma-regulate nila na maayos, matingnan nila yung pinaka nararapat na matanggap ng mga driver na pamasahe.
Grab Philippines head Brian Koo meanwhile assures they will comply with the rules imposed by the LTFRB and DOTR, though they are yet to receive a copy of the order. The LTFRB plans to meet with various TNVS groups to discuss the new fare structure set up. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Vice President Leni Robredo urges Filipinos to defend their freedom as she leads the flag-raising ceremony during 120th Independence Day celebration. Grace Casin tells us why.
Amid gloomy weather, Vice President Leni Robredo salutes the Philippine flag and lays wreath at the Rizal Monument in Manila. As she leads the independence rites at the Luneta Park, she urged the Filipinos in a statement to defend the freedom they are enjoying against threats from present-day oppressors. She adds that all this time, our sovereignty is facing many threats from poverty, rising inflation, lack of justice, and disregard of human rights to foreign invaders' claim in our territory. The Vice President alludes to the South China Sea issue following a report earlier this week on Filipino fishermen allegedly being harassed by Chinese Coast Guard in Scarborough Shoal. But the Vice President believes that Filipinos will not tolerate injustice and will fight back for our liberty. Meanwhile, some youth express different ways in celebrating the country's independence.
Makihalubili po to sa ganito para po may pakita man lang kahit papaano yung sabihin ng pagkakaisa po.
Magsuserve po ako sa kanila ng walang kapalit.
While senior citizen Pitong Valeriano hopes that President Duterte and Vice President Robredo will be united, even if they belong to opposing parties.
Wala na nga away-away. Para tuloy-tuloy. Move on, move on, move on.
Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Militant groups call on China and the United States to not meddle in Philippine policies as they held an Independence Day rally in front of the Chinese consulate in Makati and U.S. Embassy in Manila. May Bermudez tells us why.
Heavy rains did not stop these militant groups from storming the Chinese consulate in Makati City and the U.S. Embassy in Manila earlier. During the rally, they criticized China for robbing Filipino fishermen of their fish catch and the Philippine government for failing to protect its fishers in the West Philippine Sea. This came after Malacanang downplayed the incident in Scarborough when one of the fishermen said they were sort of practicing a barter system with the Chinese Coast Guard.
Ang pagkagawa ng noodle sa tubig kung hindi makapangisda ang mga mamamayan Pilipino. Pero ito ang itinutulak ni Duterte sa atin. Ang pagsuko niyang ito ay nagpapatunay ho na kahit ang sikmura niya mismo ay made in China.
They also slammed presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque for defending China instead of protesting the incident.
Si Roque, sa halip na iprotesta ito, parang binibigyang katwiran pa ang ginagawa ng Chinese Coast Guard. Ngayon po ay araw ng kalayaan, pero walang kalayaan sa West Philippine Sea, lalo na para sa ating mga mangingisda na inaagawan ng kanilang mga huli ng Chinese Coast Guard. Kaya ang panawagan natin sa araw na ito, kamtin natin ang tunay na kalayaan.
The palace, however, clarifies they are now taking steps to prevent recurrence of the Scarborough incident.
To stop the Coast Guard from doing these acts. Gumawa na kami ng mga hakbang
At ang hinihingi natin, dapat gumalaw ang mga otoridad ng China na itigil itong mga pangyayari.
Mai Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
More Filipinos express satisfaction with how democracy works in the Philippines, according to the survey of the social weather stations. Here's why from Rosalicos.
78% of Filipinos are still satisfied with how democracy works in the country based on the latest poll of the Social Weather Stations or SWS. The satisfaction rating drops 2 points from the 80% reported in June last year. 60% of Filipinos also still prefer democracy rather than other types of government, while 19% wants authoritarian rule. The survey was taken through interviews with 1,200 respondents all over the country from March 13 to 28. In his message for the anniversary of the Independence Day, President Duterte hopes for everyone's courage to defend the importance of democracy now and in the years to come. This is also to cherish the sacrifices of our forefathers by fulfilling their duty for the country, resulting to the liberty we enjoy today. The chief executive also appeals to the public to combat corruption, illegal drugs, and criminality that impede progress, and called on everyone to stand firm in creating better future for all Filipinos.
Today, we honor and remember the patriots who have given their lives in the name of liberty and freedom. As heirs of this great sacrifice, let us all be worthy of their legacy by leaving behind a nation. Yan nga. Kung hindi tayo, if we do not prepare our country financially, politically, environmentally, tandaan yung sinabi ko. And I'm thankful that I've said it in a very important place, Kawit, Cavite, where our nation was founded.
Meanwhile, before President Duterte started his speech for the Independence Day, he was heckled by some militants. But the president just said he respects freedom of expression and directed the policemen to observe maximum tolerance.
I will understand. Di manonood ako kasi naman lahat Our Constitution guarantees freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and free expression. So I would just advise the law enforcement to just deal with them peacefully and the maximum tolerance.
Rosalicos, UNTV News and Rescue, Kawit, Cavite.
The National Historical Commission of the Philippines is calling on Filipino youth to embody the ideals fought for by our heroes as the country marks 12 decades of freedom. Nel Maribuhok tells us why.
Despite the tide of challenges, calamity, and issues being faced at this time, the love for country should remain in the hearts of the Filipinos. According to National Historical Commission of the Philippines, the ideals fought for by our heroes should be embodied, especially by the Filipino youth. NHCP adds young Filipinos should also learn about the events leading to the freedom they are enjoying to further understand our history. And as the country marks the 120th independence anniversary today, some youths shared on how they can show and practice nationalism.
Papakita ko po yung pagiging patriotism kung pagiging makabayan sa pamamagitan ng pagsunod sa batas.
Ay pagtulong po sa ating sariling komunidad. Gaya po, kunyari po ako po isang nurse, tutulungan ko po ang mga mamayan at dito po ako mag-serve sa country po.
Ay dapat alam mo kung gaano ang kahalagahan mo bilang isang Pilipino.
At makikita po nila na, kahit pala ganito ang aking estado sa buhay, kaya ko palang lawakan ng aking mundo, na hindi lang ako nabubuhay para sa sarili ko.
Others also show modern-day heroism by sacrificing lives for others, like the soldiers and policemen, overseas Filipino workers, and even those who do their share in helping others in need. The NHCP also considers the recent hoisting of flag in the Philippine Rise as a display of patriotism, which is also noted by the Philippine Armed Forces.
Napakagandang simbolismo niyan sapagkat ipinakikita ng ating mga civilian counterparts na ang pangangalaga, ang pagsusulong sa ating karapatan, ang pagpapakita ng pagmamahal sa bayan ay hindi kumikilala ng kasuotan, ng hanap buhay, ng uniforme.
Ito ay isang pamamaraan ng pagpapahayag ng patriotismo dahil ito po ay pinapakita lang po natin na itong bahagi po sa ilalim ng dagat ay bahagi pa rin ng ating kalupaan.
Nel Maribuho, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Philippine National Police Chief Oscar Albayalde will no longer allow the presentation of arrested suspects before the media. Asher Kadapan Jr. explains why.
Philippine National Police Chief Director General Oscar Albayalde reiterates the directive banning of the presentation of arrested suspects before the members of the media on Tuesday. This is in consideration of the suspects' human rights as stated in a National Police Commission or NAPOLCOM order in 2008. PNP spokesperson Police Senior Superintendent Benigno Durana says the order applies to all police stations, provincial and regional police offices nationwide.
Kagabi ay pina-disseminate na sa lahat ng mga hanay ng ating kapulisyahan. Dahil din po yan, bakit anong development? I think we have to explain that. Bakit biglang nang ganon, no? Dahil nakikinig ang ating Philippine National Police, no, sa pamuno ni General Albayalde sa mga comment, criticism, tsaka yung mga suggestion ng ating mamayan.
Durana stresses that anyone violating the directive would face appropriate administrative charges.
I hope that all 1,300 plus police stations all over the country, 17 regional police offices, 83 plus provincial offices, ay natanggap na nila yon. Otherwise, there are administrative sanctions.
Durana clarifies that no one influenced Albayalde to re-implement the ban of presentation of suspects before the media. However, he admits that this was prompted by the conversation between the PNP chief and Manila Archbishop Antonio Tagle regarding the rule of law and human rights. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
A group expresses fear over possible increase in power rates due to the ongoing implementation of President Rodrigo Duterte's Executive Order Number 30. Let's find out why from Monokson.
Next month is the second year of the implementation of the Executive Order Number 30 of President Rodrigo Duterte. The said EO assures faster approval of all soon-to-be constructed power plants within and outside of the country in just 30 days. But the Power for People movement warns power rates will further rise when the number of power plants increases in the country. The group says power rate might go up by 6 pesos per kilowatt hour in the following years. They also fear a repeat of what happened during the term of President Fidel Ramos, where the country is bound by the contract it entered into with power producers for several years. The country that time was paying for electricity without being able to use it.
May mga take or pay provision yan. Kahit sobra-sobra ang kuryenteng nililikha, babayaran yan ng mga consumer.
One example of this is the 7 power supply agreements or PSA that Meralco entered into. They argue it would further accelerate power rates, but Meralco says consumers have nothing to worry about.
All DUs, including Meralco, are very transparent in the computation of the generation charge.
The Power for People movement says it will take legal action to stop the implementation of the EO 30. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Philippine National Police will soon begin putting stickers on motorcycles. Here's why from Joanano.
The Philippine National Police have created a sticker system that would be placed on motorcycles beginning in Region 3. PNP Chief Director General Oscar Albayalde explains it would help them identify riding in tandem criminals.
Hindi naman ito foolproof, no? Isang lang ito. Hindi naman natin sinasabing gagawin natin yan at matitigil na lahat yan.
This move follows the PNP Directorate for Investigation and Detective Management or DIDM report, which shows that 933 were killed by suspects in motorcycles from October 11, 2017 to June 4, 2018. 862 of these are murder, 71 are homicide, and a huge number of these cases remain unresolved. The IDM Director Francis Elmo Sarona says many of the suspects have yet to be arrested and whose identities remain unknown.
Yung motorcycle was an indispensable tool, no, in the commission of the crime, or to make good of his escape, ginamit niya motorsiklo.
Sarona says the Calabarzon police have the highest reported number of killings by riding in tandem criminals at 135, followed by Region 7 at 110. Next is the NCR with 107. VACC Vice Chairman Boy Arsenio Evangelista is in favor of PNP's plan.
We fully support any initiative, any tools to address yung riding in tandem criminals, motorcycle riding in criminals. Yung sticker na yan, it is effective. Subukan natin.
The VACC adds criminals are using motorcycles as getaway vehicles since it can easily pass by traffic congested areas. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue Philippines.
The Boracay Water Company urges residents and establishment owners in the island to seal their septic tanks in case of flooding this rainy season. Vincent Arboleda explains why.
Low-lying areas in Boracay Island tend to be submerged in flood during wet season. And though the Malay government and Boracay Island Water are pumping flood water out of these areas, this is only temporary as the sewer and drainage systems are being rehabilitated. So to avoid contaminated waters and seepage from sewers, which causes high coliform levels in the island, the Boracay Water Company urges residents and business owners to seal and separate their septic from the holding tanks.
Unang-una, wag nilang paghaluin sa isang holding tank or sa isang holding tank yung rainwater and wastewater nila. Make sure that their septic tanks, holding tanks are properly sealed para walang rainwater infiltration at makontain lang doon yung wastewater. Kasi once na naghalo yan, doon tayo magkakaroon talaga ng problema.
Aldaba explains further that if rainwater mixes with wastewater from the sewers, it would likely cause various diseases due to the presence of fecal matter and microorganisms.
Yung pagiging responsible nila sa wastewater discharge, napaka-importante nun para sa sustainability ng Boracay Island. We don't want to happen again na magkaroon ng Boracay closure because of irresponsible business habits.
Of the 1,844 establishments served by Boracay Water, only 937 are connected to the sewer system. The company aims to connect the remaining establishments in July while dislodging areas outside of the sewer system until a communal septic tank will be built in the area. The Tourism Infrastructure and Enterprise Zone Authority, or TIEZA, which handles the drainage construction, is also urged to fast-track the process. Boracay Water Company also assures its facilities can handle the load of wastes from the establishments they cater to maintain proper waste sanitation. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue, Boracay.
Good evening. Here are the top stories on Y News Tonight. U.S. President Donald Trump hails the results of his first ever face-to-face talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The two began their historic summit in Singapore with a firm handshaking, followed by a more than 40-minute meeting and working lunch where they discussed different issues. Both leaders also signed a joint document that states North Korea's commitment to denuclearization and the establishing of new diplomatic ties between the two countries. The two countries also vowed to build a lasting and stable peace regime on the Korean Peninsula and Pyongyang's commitment to recovering the remains of prisoners of war and persons who are missing in action. Trump, meanwhile, committed to end military drills with South Korea and possibly reduce the presence of military troops over there. During a press conference after the summit, Trump lauded and repeatedly called Kim a very smart person and a good negotiator. And though the meeting had been productive, Trump mentioned that the economic sanctions imposed on North Korea will remain effective.
A lot of progress, really very positive. I think better than anybody could have expected. Top of the line, really good.
Today, we had a historic meeting and decided to leave
the past behind, and we are about to sign a historic document. The world will see a major change. I would like to express my gratitude to President Trump to make this meeting happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board will have a free hand in setting up the fare structure of the transport network companies under the new order signed by Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade. The new memo effectively nullifies the DOTR Orders 2015 and 2017-11, which allow the TNCs to draft their own fare matrices. TNC drivers are now in favor of the order, but they ask the LTFRB to be reasonable in setting the rates. Grab Philippines, meanwhile, assures they will comply with the rules imposed by the LTFRB and DOTR, though they are yet to receive a copy of the order. The LTFRB plans to meet with various TNV's group to discuss the new fare structure setup.
LTFRB will ensure consumer protection and fair competition with the authority given by the department order authorizing LTFRB to regulate and supervise TNCs and TNVS.
In other news, President Rodrigo Duterte shares with Chinese Ambassador Zhao Jinhua the country's concern over the Chinese Coast Guard's act of taking the catch of Filipino fishermen at Scarborough or Panatag Shoal. Duterte and Zhao have talked during the 120th Independence Day celebration in Kawit, Cavite earlier. Though the Chinese official confirms that barter system is indeed happening in Scarborough, he clarifies that the Chinese government did not order the forceful taking of fish catch from the Filipinos. The Chinese Foreign Ministry is now investigating the incident and will discipline those involved once it proves the allegations.
President Duterte shared his concern about the Filipino fishermen. I remember even before he took office, he raised the concern. And after he took office, China and the Philippines, under the guidance of both presidents of the two countries, we reached a friendly arrangement which allows the Filipino fishermen to go back to the waters near Scarborough. Fishermen are fishing there. This arrangement is not changed and will not be changed.
Vice President Leni Robredo urges Filipinos to defend their freedom against threats from modern-day oppressors as the country marks the 120th independence anniversary. In a statement, she said, "Our sovereignty is facing threats from poverty, rising inflation, lack of justice, and disregard of human rights to foreign invaders' claims on our territory." The Vice President alludes to South China Sea issue following a report earlier this week on Filipino fishermen allegedly harassed by Chinese Coast Guard in Scarborough Shoal. But she believes that Filipinos will not tolerate injustice and will fight back for our liberty. The Vice President led the Independence Day riots at the Luneta Park in Manila earlier. Meanwhile, 78% of Filipinos are still satisfied with how democracy works in the country based on the latest poll of the Social Weather Stations, or SWS. This rating, however, is lower by 2 points from last year's 80%. SWS also reports that 60% of Filipinos still prefer democracy rather than other types of government, while 19% wants authoritarian rule. The survey was taken through interviews with 1,200 respondents all over the country from March 13 to 28. Meanwhile, an Independence Day message, President Duterte hopes for everyone's courage to defend the importance of democracy now and in the years to come. He also calls on Filipinos to cherish the sacrifices of our forefathers to combat corruption and criminality and to stand firm in creating better future for all.
Today, we honor and remember the patriots who have given their lives in the name of liberty and freedom. As heirs of this great sacrifice, let us all be worthy of their legacy by leaving behind a nation. Yan nga. Kung hindi tayo, if we do not prepare our country financially, politically, environmentally, tandaan yung sinabi ko. And I'm thankful that I've said it in a very important place, Kawit, Cavite, where our nation was founded.
Philippine National Police Chief Oscar Albayalde will no longer allow the presentation of arrested suspects before the media. The directive is in consideration of the suspects' human rights as stated in the National Police Commission or NAPOLCOM order in 2008. The directive applies to all police stations, provincial and regional police offices nationwide.
I hope that all 1,300 plus police stations all over the country, 17 regional police offices, 83 plus provincial offices, ay natanggap na nila yon. Otherwise, there are administrative sanctions. I hope that...
And for our weather update, the public is advised to continue bringing umbrellas and other protective gear as prevailing southwest monsoon or habagat brings prolonged period of rainfall, mostly in Luzon. State Weather Bureau Pag-asa says Metro Manila will continue to experience heavy rains as well as Zambales, Bataan, Batangas, and the Ilocos region. The rest of Luzon will also have partly cloudy to cloudy skies, while thunderstorms will prevail over the Visayas and Mindanao. No tropical cyclone is seen to affect the country for the next 24 hours. And for the news abroad, here's Eric Ferrer from Uijeongbuk, South Korea. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, William. White House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow suffers a heart attack. U.S. President Donald Trump made the announcement on Twitter on Tuesday, saying Kudlow is being treated at a Washington area hospital. A longtime television commentator, Kudlow was hired by Trump in March to replace Gary Cohn as director of the National Economic Council. British Prime Minister Theresa May said on Monday that a meeting of the group of 7 leaders in Canada had been difficult and countries had to avoid taking unilateral action in order to protect the global trading system. May told lawmakers in Britain's parliament that multilateral action was the right way to address the problems caused by globalization for workers in some countries. After the G7 summit, which ended on Saturday, U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington was backing out of a joint communique which agreed on the importance of fighting protectionism, and he threatened to add tariffs on auto imports to other U.S. tariffs. In her comments on Monday, May warned of the risk of a tit-for-tat escalation of the trade dispute. Spain has offered to dock in stranded migrant ships in international waters. Here's why from Jovic Vermas.
Spain on Monday offers to take in a humanitarian ship stranded in international waters with 629 migrants aboard, as Italy and Malta both continue to refuse to let it dock. In a possible solution to the impasse, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, a socialist who took office just over a week ago, gave instructions that the ship be allowed to dock in the eastern port of Valencia. The rescue ship Aquarius, operated by SOS Mediterranean with Medicines Sans Frontieres, had sailed north towards Italy, but Interior Minister and head of far-right League Party Matteo Salvini blocked it. Commenting on the news, Salvini said his decision is a first sign of the fact that Italy cannot continue to support the management of the crisis on its own, and a discussion front for a new immigration policy at continental level had been opened.
Evidentemente alzare garbatamente la voce paga.
Obviously, politely raising one's voice pays off. This is something that Italy has not done for a long time and for several years. We have opened a discussion front for a new immigration policy at continental level. The game certainly does not end today. It is a first sign of the fact that Italy cannot continue to support this enormous burden on its own.
È un primo importante segnale del fatto che l'Italia non può continuare a sostenere da sola.
Speaking in Italy during a visit to earthquake-hit towns, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte thanked Spain for having showed his willingness to accept the ship. Medicines Sans Frontieres head of advocacy Marco Bertotto told Reuters he is sorry to see political disagreements where this is a humanitarian need that should be answered immediately, while Mayor of Naples Luigi De Magistris hardly criticized Italy's decision, to not let the ship dock, saying putting human lives at risk is a crime against humanity.
E noi ribadiamo a tutte le autorità competenti che al di là del
We reiterate to all the competent authorities that beyond the discussion and the political arm wrestling, there is an urgent need to bring these people to a safe port where they can receive the protection and assistance they need. We are sorry that there are political disagreements and political arm wrestling where there is a humanitarian need that should be answered immediately.
Laddove c'è una esigenza umanitaria a cui bisogna dare una risposta immediata.
Jovic Burmas, UNTV News and Rescue, Europe.
A New York bar elevates their chicken wings with extravagant exterior. Meanwhile, a woman cultivates vegetables in her garden, but these are nestled on the rooftop of some buildings in Monaco. Leslie Longbowen tells us why.
A restaurateur in New York hopes to strike gold with foodies by elevating their chicken wing by dressing it up in the shimmering precious metal. Two Manhattan locations of the Ainsworth are now selling 24-karat gold-dusted chicken wings, which adds the right touch to the beloved bar food staple, said owner Brian Mazza.
I felt like gold would be great to pop on Instagram. Gold is, in. A lot of people are wearing gold now.
Despite its extravagant exterior, the preparation of the wings is rather conventional, involving brining, frying, and tossing it in a honey chipotle sauce.
After that process, then our chef has the magic touch and then puts the gold on.
An Instagram-worthy snap of the glittery wings doesn't come cheap. The bar sells 10 wings for $45 US, 20 wings for $90 US at its Chelsea and East Village locations. Filled with squash, peas, and a variety of tomatoes, Jessica's Bralagia's gardens are just like any other, except that they are nestled on the noisy rooftops of Monaco, the most densely populated country in the world. The produce from Sbaraglia's urban gardens ends up on some of the chicest tables in town, serving a Michelin-starred restaurant and residents of the tiny city-state. At her 400-square-meter garden above Hotel Monte Carlo-based conference hall, zucchinis are ready to be picked. In the garden, not only does Sbaraglia grow vegetables and herbs, she also cares for 8 chickens and several beehives. Sbaraglia said produce cultivated in her gardens is more than organic. Trained in permaculture, she follows strict guidelines to create a symbiotic ecosystem in each of her sites. Leslie Longbowen, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news. June 12, 2018. I am William Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Thank you for watching Why News.